The old Smitherman house was haunted. That is what the town said. Teddy did not believe in ghosts, and as always, always had to find out the truth. Teddy grew up knowing the Smitherman house was haunted, and it was Teddy who wanted to find out about the lost truth of the old house that sat on the corner of Telsder Avenue and Brickton Street. Miss Adele Smitherman. She was the great-granddaughter of Robert Thorsten Smitherman, who founded the metal manufacturing plant down by the river. If you are in the backyard of the haunted house, you can see the smokestacks of the old plant down the hill at the bend of the river. The smokestacks no longer produce smoke, and the plant no longer casts metal. It is now home to a complex of apartments and shops. The plant itself was a group of big buildings with 4 intersecting streets. After the plant closed in the 70s, it was left for time to slowly erase the plant from the landscape. In the early 90s, some developers had the idea of turning the plant into a community with bike trails, apartments, and stores. Miss Smitherman never had the opportunity to watch the redevelopment of her family's plant. Instead, from her perch on top of the hill at the corner of Telsder and Brickton, old Lady Smitherman watched the plant be consumed by trees and vines. She died alone in her house in a chair looking out the window facing the old plant. It was said she did not speak to anyone or have any contact with anyone for the last few years of her life. She died 1981. No one knows for sure what date, because she was not found until January of 1982, hence the rumor. The house was locked up right after the removal of her body, and it was never opened again until Teddy decided to explore after reading about the Smitherman fortune and Miss Smitherman's death. What had happened to the fortune when it went into probate? There was no family to claim the house, nor the estate of Miss Smitherman. The bank manager who was paying the bills from the estate could no longer access the money. From Teddy's research, the house and estate were just left in limbo. She was a very important person at the time and respected in the community up until her death. Teddy surmised that the courts, the banks, and everyone in between left the house as is, assuming some lost family member would eventually claim the estate. The house was soon forgotten, except for the local residents, who dared not trespass, and the tale of the ghost of Miss Smitherman arose. She walked the hallways of the house, with all her belongings left where she put them. No one entered her house. It laid untouched for 20 years. When Teddy found out about all this, even though he was only 13 years old, he had to go inside and explore the house that has been forgotten for so long. At the break of dawn, Teddy stood at the edge of the overgrown yard, his eyes fixed on the old abandoned house. The first light of the morning bathed the weathered facade in the gentle glow, highlighting the cracks and peeling paint that bore the weight of the decades of decay. Teddy's pulse quickened. A shiver traced down Teddy's spine, settling all the way down into his worn-out Converse. He shifted his weight, the damp grass brushing against his ankles as the house loomed ahead. Taking a deep breath, he dipped his thumbs beneath the waistband of his jeans, giving them a quick tug, a small familiar gesture as if courage could be summoned with the right grip. The cool metal of his belt buckle pressed against his fingers, grounding him. For a moment, he stared at the weathered door, its peeling paint curling like an old parchment. His pulse thudded. One more tug, and he set his jaw. Whatever lay inside, he was done standing still. Today marked the start of an adventure he long imagined. A journey into the unknown, lured by the whispers of the house's haunted history. The structure loomed before him. Its silent walls seemed to hum with secrets of the days gone by, beckoning him to uncover their truths. As the sun's golden rays stretched over the horizon, Teddy drew a steady breath, summoning his resolve. Slowly, he stepped forward, each movement deliberate. The ancient wooden floorboards groaned beneath his cautious tread, their protests breaking the stillness that clung to the air like a veil. Teddy stood at the stoop of the house. The overhang above the front door was leaning to the left. Birds for countless years have made nests in the rafters of the small roof until the shingles finally succumbed to the age and weather and let all the elements through to the stoop. Teddy had to step around the shingles and pieces of rafters that lay at his feet. The broken shingles crunched beneath Teddy's Converse, their jagged edges pressing through the thin soles. Each step sent a gritty, uneven sensation up through his feet, the rough texture a stark reminder of the house's long decay. There was no screen door, just two grand, ornate wooden doors that must have been a symbol of the opulence a century ago. Now, they were battered by time, their intricate carvings worn smooth, the once polished surface dulled and cracked. Teddy marveled at the fact that they were still standing, their joints weak and splintered, barely clinging to the frame. He couldn't fathom what kept them intact. A single well-placed kick from someone his size could surely bring them crashing down. But Teddy didn't kick them. Instead, he stepped closer. His curiosity outweighed any urge to test their fragility. His eyes lingered onto the two doorknobs, situated side by side in the center of the doors. Rust marred the once brilliant brass finish, and cobwebs stretched between the knobs like gossamer locks. He hesitated for a moment, then reached for the knob on the left. The cool metal felt rough beneath his fingers. As he turned it cautiously, the mechanism creaked in protest. Taking a deep breath, he pressed gently against the door. As Teddy turned the knob and gave a slight push, he felt the old doors give way, almost as if they were signing in relief, their long struggle to remain closed finally over. With a groan that echoed like a laminate of time itself, both doors broke free of their hinges and crashed to the ground, sending up a plume of smoke from within the house. The silence within the house was thick and expectant, as though the very walls were holding their breath. Teddy paused, taking in the dim, dust-covered interior, where the shadows danced in corners untouched by light. His curiosity overpowered his fear, propelling him deeper into the heart of the house. With one last glance at the world outside, he stepped fully in the gloom, ready to unravel the forgotten history of the Smitherman house and confront whatever secrets await him. The thick age particles surged outwards, enveloping Teddy in the gritty cloud that clung to his clothes and stung his eyes. Through watery eyes, Teddy gazed at the Smitherman house, its interior now revealed. The faint light from the rising sun spilled across the threshold, illuminating a room cloaked in shadows and forgotten memories. After the crash of the doors and the rush of the dust, silence reclaimed its hold on the house. The profound stillness lingered, broken only by the soft cooing of birds above the occasional rustle of leaves outside. A gentle breeze nudged Teddy forward, as if urging him to step into the mysteries that await. He remained still, savoring the weight of the moment. His eyes darted across the dim hallway, carefully taking in every detail the soft morning light revealed. About 10 feet ahead, a table stood resolutely on what appeared to be a marble floor, its original color obscured by the passage of time and the layers of dust that have claimed it. Teddy couldn't discern whether it had been white, black, or some elegant shade in between, its identity lost to the years. Atop the table rested a bust of a man, its features obscured by a thick layer of dust that seemed to dull even the sharpest details. Next to the bust were scattered letters and what appeared to be a tea setting, cups and a teapot, and perhaps a tray, all similarly shrouded in neglect. The dust-coated relics painted a picture of a life long forgotten, frozen in time. Flanking the table were two grand spiral staircases. They twisted upward, curling around the table as if framing it in reverence, and stretched to the second floor. The staircases were elegant yet imposing, their thick wooden banisters polished smooth by time. Teddy stepped forward, the soles of the shoes stirring faint puffs of dust with each cautious stride. His curiosity had firmly overtaken his caution as he moved deeper into the strange blend of decay and faded grandeur. His gaze shifted to the bust of the table, its dust-covered face staring back at him with a stern, unyielding expression. "It's been 40 years since anyone's been here," directing his words to the bust as though it might answer. He studied its features: sharp cheekbones, a strong jawline, an air of authority that suggested it belonged to someone of importance. The face was unfamiliar. Was it someone famous, a historical figure, or perhaps a local legend, a patriarch of the family that once lived here? The bust offered no reply. Its expression froze in disapproval. In the eerie stillness of the moment, Teddy couldn't shake the feeling that the statue wasn't just a lifeless decoration. It seemed to watch him, judging him silently for the state of the front doors, now lying in ruins outside. He imagined the bust as a long-standing sentinel, guarding the entrance to this forgotten domain for decades, displeased that he had breached its vigil without permission. The absurdity of the thought made Teddy chuckle under his breath. But the sensation lingered. He gave the bust a slight nod, almost apologetic, before turning his attention to the rest of the room. Dust motes danced in the beams of light, streaming through the cracks in the shutters, and the house seemed to exhale in the quiet, as if adjusting to the presence of its uninvited guest. Teddy decided to start his exploration at the back of the first floor, planning to work his way around before confronting the imposing staircases. Every detail in this story, every eerie pause, every chilling sound is crafted to pull you in. And that's what I do. I'm Eric, the creator and editor behind this podcast. But storytelling doesn't stop here. At EC Creative Sound and Story, I apply that same precision to video editing for corporate and small businesses. If your brand needs compelling visuals that captivate, let's make that happen. Visit eccreative.net to connect. Now, back to... Wait. Did you hear that? Hold on. Teddy needs my help writing his way out of this haunted house. Wish me luck. Deliberately, he turned left, heading into the grand living room, choosing to avoid the drawing room to the right for now. Truthfully, Teddy wasn't entirely sure what a drawing room was. He always assumed it was smaller, more intimate space than a living room. The room he stepped into was vast, with high ceilings that seemed to stretch towards the heavens. It was furnished with an array of elegant yet fading pieces, large overstuffed couches, intricately carved chairs, and a massive stone fireplace that dominated the far wall. Above the fireplace, a grand mantel displaying odd contrast. Delicate statues lined one side, while the other was crowded with dusty family photographs in tarnished silver frames. Teddy took in the room with a critical eye. It was grand, no doubt, but it didn't feel inviting. The stiff furniture and the cold atmosphere didn't strike him as the kind of place where he wanted to sit and read a book. His gaze lingered for a moment on the photos. "I shouldn't be here," he whispered under his breath, the words barely breaking the heavy stillness. But curiosity clung to him, tugging at the edge of his fear. What happened here? Questions swirled, but no answers came. Only the unshakable feeling like he was an intruder. Then it happened. A sound. Faint, but deliberate. A creak from the shadows beyond. Not the settling of an old house. No, this was something else. The hair on his back of his neck bristled. "Nope, nope, 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 nope," Teddy muttered, his voice shaking as he instinctively took a step back, but his feet stayed rooted, unwilling to flee. His pulse pounded. Maybe just a peek, just to see. Across the hall, the drawing room caught his eye. It seemed smaller, cozier. A single plush couch rested near the leather chair with a matching ottoman. His thoughts turned to the article he read in the newspaper. The one about Miss Smitherman. It said she was found in a chair, a book resting in her lap when she passed away. Teddy instinctively avoided looking too long at the drawing room's entrance. He wasn't ready to step into that space just yet. Disturbing that particular room at the start of his investigation felt wrong, as though he might be intruding on something sacred. Instead, turned his attention back to the grand living room, resolving to start his search here. Now, Teddy had no grand plan, no specific treasure or revelation he sought. He was driven instead by a restless curiosity in the mysteries woven in the fabric of the Smitherman house. For as long as he could remember, the house had always been a thing of lore. An untouchable relic perched on the hill, shrouded in whispered rumors and eerie stories. Why? Even within the town they had helped build, their memory lingered only in whispers. And in this house, a haunting testament to their forgotten story. It didn't make sense. Families of similar wealth and influence had cemented their names into history books. What had happened to the Smithermans? Why had their names been erased, leaving only the shadows of this house behind? The grand living room was grand indeed. Instinctively, Teddy glanced down at his scuffed Converse, their once white canvas now streaked with dirt and dust. Without thinking, he scraped his feet against the edge of the faded rug, like that would somehow make him less of an intruder. It didn't. The shoes still looked completely out of place against the cracked marble floor. "Yeah, like I belong here," swiping his sweaty palms down the side of his jeans. The air felt heavier, like the house itself was silently judging him. Teddy clenched his fists slightly, his determination hardening. He didn't know what he was looking for. A single step in, and his gaze was pulled in every direction, overwhelmed by splendor. He imagined the posh parties that must have once filled this space. Men in sharp tuxedos, women in gowns that shimmered under the glow of crystal chandeliers. Laughter and whispered deals exchanged over fine cigars and aged whiskey. He shifted on his feet, feeling suddenly out of place, like a trespasser in a museum where the past still whispered through the silence. With all the ancient splendor capturing his eyes, the one thing that seemed utterly out of place, a small wooden table with a simple chair tucked in the farthest corner of the room. Teddy's eyes narrowed as he took in the details. An old teacup perched at the edge of the table, its delicate rim stained from use. Beside it, a small pile of newspapers lay stacked, their edges curled with age. One was spread open, frozen in time, as though someone had been reading it before suddenly walking away. Next to it, a notepad and a fine pen set rest neatly in place, waiting for thoughts that were never finished. It was easy to imagine Lady Smitherman seated here, absorbed in the daily news, perhaps jotting notes in her careful hand. The contrast between her chosen seat and the grandeur of the room made the scene even more peculiar. Teddy approached the table, his fingers itching to pick at the newspapers. He expected it to be dated from the time of her death. A final clue left untouched, a remnant of the lost moments of life once lived. But as his eyes fell on the date, his breath caught in his throat. The newspaper was the Herald. Teddy recognized its masthead immediately from the hours of reading at the library. He also knew something else. The Smitherman family owned the Herald, and it had stopped publishing in 1943. Miss Tallery, the town librarian, had told him as much whenever he asked about the old paper. The Herald had been a highly successful publication. Its circulation stretched far behind the city limits and reaching readers across the state. Then, without warning, it shut down. Miss Taylor never knew why. She always repeated the same story, how the Herald produced some of the finest journalists of its time, many of whom worked later at the New York Times after the paper's sudden closure. Teddy's fingers hovered over the brittle page as he studied the open section. Most of it was advertisements, but the featured article caught his attention. The headline announced a street closure due to a fire, Smithy Lane. Teddy's pulse quickened. Smithy Lane was now a museum, a historical landmark, but in 1943, it had been a residential street, and back then, the only resident on the street was Mr. Blaine Smitherman, Lady Smitherman's great-uncle, or maybe great-great-uncle. Teddy couldn't remember exactly what the tour guide had said when his class visited the museum last fall. Still, the connection was there. A fire, a street closure, an abrupt end to the Herald. Something happened in 1943, and Teddy had a feeling he was about to find out what.
What is going to happen to Teddy? I don't even know. Well, actually I do know, because I'm the writer, but I'm not going to tell you. You're just going to have to wait for part 2 coming real soon. This is Eric with EC Creative Sound and Story, and if you want to hear my other podcasts, go to my website, ecreative.net, or you can find me on any of your favorite podcast platforms. Hey, thanks for listening, and remember, stay creative.